What if I told you a 16-year-old kid from Oklahoma figured out how to win every single bracket race he entered using nothing more than a Radio Shack relay, some wire, and $35 worth of parts? While professional racers were spending thousands on reaction time trainers and hiring sports psychologists, this teenager was soldering together a device in his garage that would revolutionize drag racing forever. Before the NHRA banned it, before it became the most controversial piece of equipment in motorsports history, it was just a gray project box with 2 switches and a secret that made one kid virtually unbeatable. Picture this. It's 1984, at Thunder Valley Raceway outside Oklahoma City. The Saturday night bracket racing program is in full swing. Hundreds of cars staging, launching, racing. Prize money on the line. Grown men who've been racing for decades are getting consistently beaten by a high school junior driving a primer gray 1976 Camaro. Race after race, round after round, this kid's reaction times are perfect. Not just good, perfect. .000 on the tree nearly every single time. The veterans are furious. They know something's up, but they can't figure out what. The kid just smiles, collects his winnings, and loads up for the next race. This is the story of how delay boxes went from illegal cheater boxes hidden under dashboards to mandatory equipment in modern bracket racing. It's about innovation, controversy, and how one teenager's creation forced the entire sport to evolve. But more importantly, it's about what happens when you give a smart kid with nothing to lose the chance to outsmart an entire establishment that never saw him coming. To understand why this invention was so revolutionary, we need to travel back to the early 1980s, when bracket racing was exploding across America. Unlike heads-up racing where the fastest car wins, bracket racing was designed to let anyone compete. You picked your dial-in time, say 12:50 seconds, and had to run as close to that number as possible without going under. Breaking out meant losing. The beauty was that a 16-second station wagon could race and beat a 9-second dragster if the drivers were equally skilled. But here's where it got interesting. The start was everything. Both cars launched when the last amber light came on, not when the green lit. If you waited for green, you were already beaten. The Pro Tree gave you 0.4 of a second between the last amber and green. A perfect reaction time was .00, meaning you left exactly when the green came on. Most good racers averaged around .020 to .040. Anything under .010 was exceptional. The best in the world might hit 1,000 once or twice in a weekend if they were lucky. Our Oklahoma teenager was hitting outsmart nearly every single run. The racing community in 1984 was still relatively small and tight-knit. Word traveled fast about this kid who couldn't be beaten on the tree. His name was Tommy Peterson, though that wasn't his real name. The actual inventor asked to remain anonymous when telling this story years later. Tommy was a junior at Putnam City High School, ran cross-country, got straight A's in math and science, and spent his evenings in the garage tinkering with electronics. His father was an electrician at Tinker Air Force Base, and Tommy had grown up surrounded by wiring diagrams, multimeters, and soldering irons. The problem Tommy saw was simple. Human reaction time was the limiting factor in bracket racing. The average person's reaction to a visual stimulus is about 250 milliseconds, or .250 seconds. Through practice, racers could train themselves down to about 150 to 180 seconds consistently. Add in the mechanical delay of releasing the clutch or brake button, and you're looking at best-case scenario reaction times around 20 seconds. But that still left a huge variable, the human element. Tommy's solution was elegant in its simplicity. What if you could remove human reaction time from the equation entirely? Here's where the engineering gets beautiful. Tommy understood that the Christmas tree starting lights operated on a precise timer. In bracket racing with a sportsman tree, each amber light came on exactly 0.5 of a second apart. The final amber to green was another 0.5. That timing never varied. It was controlled by a crystal oscillator accurate to thousandths of a second. If you could precisely time your launch from when you triggered the staging beam, you could theoretically achieve a perfect reaction time every single run. The first prototype was laughably crude. Tommy took a Radio Shack project box about the size of a pack of cigarettes. Inside, he installed a simple 555 timer integrated circuit, a chip that cost about $3 and was commonly used in everything from windshield wiper controls to toy police sirens. The 555 timer could be configured to create precise delays, adjustable with a potentiometer. He added a relay that could handle 30 amps, enough to trigger a transmission brake solenoid or clutch release. 2 toggle switches, one to arm the system, one to activate it. Total parts cost $35. The theory was simple. When staged and ready to launch, Tommy would flip the arm switch. When he was ready, he'd hit the activate button. The timer would count down exactly the right amount of time, then release the transmission brake automatically. He didn't have to react to the lights at all. He could close his eyes if he wanted to. The car would launch at precisely the right moment every single time. But here's the kicker. Tommy didn't just wire it up randomly. He spent weeks at the track with a stopwatch and a notebook, recording the exact timing of the tree at Thunder Valley. Not all tracks were calibrated identically. Some were a few thousandths fast, some slow. Temperature affected the timing. Even the voltage coming from different power sources could create variations. Tommy cataloged everything. The engineering inside that gray box was deceptively sophisticated. The 555 timer operated in monostable mode, creating a single precise pulse when triggered. The timing was controlled by a resistor-capacitor network where the delay equaled 1.1 times the resistance times the capacitance. By using a 10-turn precision potentiometer, Tommy could adjust the delay in increments of just a few milliseconds. The relay was a Bosch automotive unit, rated for millions of cycles, the same type used in German car headlight circuits. He added a protection diode across the relay coil to prevent voltage spikes from frying the timer chip when the magnetic field collapsed. Tommy also understood something most racers didn't. The transmission brake solenoid didn't release instantly. There was a mechanical delay of about 30 milliseconds as the hydraulic pressure bled off and the clutches disengaged. The car didn't actually start moving for another 20 to 40 milliseconds as the drivetrain took up slack and the tires began to bite. He factored all of this into his calculations. While other racers were trying to anticipate the light, Tommy was working with precise, repeatable numbers. His first test came on a Thursday night test and tune session in May 1984. Nobody paid attention to the kid in the primer Camaro making single runs and returning to the pits. Tommy was dialing in his delay box, adjusting the potentiometer a few clicks at a time. Run after run, he recorded his reaction times in a spiral notebook: 043, 031, 022, 018, 09, 03, then finally, run 0. Perfect. The key to Tommy's success wasn't just the delay box itself. It was his methodical approach to using it. He created different settings for different conditions. Track temperature affected tire rollout. Humidity changed engine performance slightly, which affected the car's launch characteristics. Even his position in the staging beams mattered. Deep staging versus shallow staging could change the reaction time by several thousandths. When Tommy started entering bracket races, he was smart about it. He didn't win every round with a Poisson reaction time. That would have been too obvious. He varied his reaction times between 1000 and .015, occasionally throwing in a 0.20 or worse to avoid suspicion. But when the money rounds came, when it really mattered, that gray box under his dashboard delivered perfection. The Camaro itself was intentionally unremarkable. A 350 small block Chevy with a mild cam, Holley 650 carburetor, TH350 transmission with a trans-go shift kit. Nothing special. It ran consistent 12.80s in the quarter mile. Tommy chose this setup deliberately. He didn't want a fast car that drew attention. He wanted a reliable car that hit its dial-in every time. The delay box handled the starting line, but Tommy still had to drive the finish line, and he was exceptional at that too. Within 3 months, Tommy had won 11 bracket races at Thunder Valley and neighboring tracks around Oklahoma City. His take-home was over $8,000, serious money for a high school kid in 1984. He bought a new paint job for the Camaro, metallic blue with ghost flames, and a set of Weld racing wheels. The rest went into a college fund and more electronic components. But success breeds scrutiny. Other racers started paying very close attention to Tommy's routine. They noticed that he always did the same thing in the staging lanes. Flip a switch under the dash, put both hands on the steering wheel, stare straight ahead, not even looking at the tree. Then the car would launch perfectly every single time. A few racers confronted him directly, accusing him of cheating. Tommy just shrugged and said he'd been practicing meditation techniques to improve his concentration. The controversy exploded in August 1984 at the Thunder Valley Points Championship race. Tommy was winning everything, and a group of veteran racers formally protested to the track management. They demanded his car be inspected for illegal equipment. The track's technical inspector, an old-timer named Earl who'd been involved in drag racing since the 1960s, went through the Camaro with a fine-tooth comb. He found the gray box under the dash, but had no idea what it was. Tommy claimed it was a shift light controller, which was partially true. He had wired an LED to it as camouflage. The rulebook was the problem, or rather the solution, depending on your perspective. The 1984 NHRA rulebook said nothing about electronic aids for improving reaction time. There were rules about computers for traction control, rules about automated shifting, rules about throttle stops, but nothing about reaction time enhancement. The technology simply hadn't existed when the rules were written. Tommy wasn't breaking any rules because there were no rules to break. Earl, the tech inspector, was fascinated by the device once Tommy explained how it worked. He'd seen 40 years of racing innovation, from fuel injection to nitrous oxide to turbocharging, and he recognized genius when he saw it. He also recognized that this was going to cause massive controversy. His ruling was that since no specific rule prohibited the device, Tommy could continue using it. The veteran racers were furious, but they couldn't argue with the rulebook. What happened next was predictable. Within weeks, every electronic-savvy racer in Oklahoma was building their own delay box. Tommy freely shared his design with anyone who asked. He saw no point in keeping it secret now that it was in the open. Radio Shack stores across Oklahoma City sold out of 505 timer chips. The going rate for someone to build and install a delay box was $200. Tommy himself built and sold dozens of them, refining the design with each iteration. The second generation of Tommy's delay box was significantly more sophisticated. He added a 2-stage system that could handle both the initial launch and a secondary timer for nitrous activation or shift points. He incorporated a more precise crystal oscillator instead of the RC timing network, improving accuracy to plus or minus 1 millisecond. He added LED indicators for armed status and activation confirmation. The new version used a microprocessor, an Intel 8048, giving it programmable delays and the ability to store multiple settings. The microprocessor changed everything. Now racers could program different delays for different tracks, different weather conditions, even different lanes. Tommy wrote the assembly code himself, teaching himself from Intel's programming manual. The processor could compensate for rollout differences between shallow and deep staging. It could even add a random variance to avoid suspicion, what Tommy called stealth mode. By winter 1984, delay boxes were showing up at tracks across the Southwest. The technology spread like wildfire through the bracket racing community. Some racers embraced it as the future of the sport. Others decried it as cheating that removed the skill from drag racing. The controversy reached NHRA headquarters in California, where officials were frantically trying to figure out how to handle this technological revolution. The physics of why delay boxes worked so perfectly is worth understanding. Human reaction time isn't just about neural processing speed. It involves multiple steps: photons hitting the retina, conversion to electrical signals, transmission through the optic nerve, processing in the visual cortex, decision-making in the motor cortex, signals traveling down the spinal cord, and finally muscle activation. Each step adds milliseconds. Even with training, there's biological variance. Fatigue, caffeine, adrenaline, even blood sugar levels affect reaction time. The delay box eliminated all of that variance. It was purely electronic. Electrons moving through circuits at nearly the speed of light, transistors switching in nanoseconds, relays activating in precisely timed sequences. The consistency was absolute. While a human might vary their reaction time by 20 or 30 milliseconds from run to run, the delay box varied by less than 1 millisecond. Tommy's device also solved another problem most racers didn't even realize they had: anticipation errors. When racers tried to anticipate the light, they were essentially guessing. Guess wrong by even 5 milliseconds, and you either red-lighted or gave up valuable time. The delay box never guessed. It knew exactly when to release the car for optimal reaction time without red lighting. The track owners found themselves in a difficult position. Bracket racing was built on the premise that anyone could compete. It was supposed to be about consistency and skill, not who had the most money or best equipment. But delay boxes were relatively cheap and easy to build. If anything, they leveled the playing field more. A kid with $35 in Radio Shack parts could compete against someone who'd spent thousands on reaction time training. The social dynamics at the track changed dramatically. Old-school racers who'd spent decades perfecting their reaction times felt betrayed. Their hard-earned skills were suddenly worthless against a $3 timer chip. Younger racers embraced the technology enthusiastically. They saw it as evolution, no different than when automatic transmissions replaced manual clutch setups in many racing classes. Tommy became something of a folk hero among young racers. Here was a kid who'd outsmarted the entire establishment with intelligence and innovation, rather than money or connections. He gave seminars at local tracks, teaching people not just how to build delay boxes, but the theory behind them. He emphasized that the box was just a tool. You still needed to drive the finish line, maintain your car, and race smart. By early 1985, the situation had reached a crisis point. Major bracket races were seeing fields where half the racers were using delay boxes and half weren't. The racers without boxes didn't stand a chance. Some tracks tried to ban the devices locally, but enforcement was nearly impossible. The boxes were small enough to hide anywhere in a car. Some racers built them into their dashboards, disguised as tachometers or shift lights. The NHRA's response came at the 1985 season opener. They announced a new division in bracket racing, Super Pro, where delay boxes and other electronic aids were explicitly allowed, and Pro, where they were banned. It was a compromise that satisfied nobody completely, but allowed the sport to continue functioning. Ironically, within a few years, delay boxes became mandatory in Super Pro to ensure fair competition. The technical evolution of delay boxes accelerated rapidly after legalization. Digital Delay Incorporated, founded by two former aerospace engineers, released the first commercial unit in late 1985. It featured a 4-digit LED display, multiple program delays, and automatic rollout compensation. The price was $495, expensive, but racers gladly paid it for the competitive advantage. Autometer followed with their ProCube delay box in 1986, adding features like crossover delay for racing on both sides of the tree and built-in practice modes. Beyond Racing products introduced weather station integration, automatically adjusting delays based on atmospheric conditions. By 1987, delay boxes had more computing power than the Apollo spacecraft that went to the moon. Tommy Peterson's $35 creation had spawned a multi-million-dollar industry. Companies employed engineers, programmers, and technicians to develop ever more sophisticated delay boxes. Features that Tommy had sketched in his notebook became standard: two-step launch control, automatic shifters, throttle stops, data logging. Modern delay boxes can control every aspect of a race car's performance from launch to finish line. The philosophical questions raised by delay boxes remain relevant today. What is the essence of racing? Is it pure human skill, or is it the combination of human and machine working together? If technology can eliminate human limitations, should we embrace it or resist it? These same questions arise with modern innovations like traction control in Formula One or driver aids in streetcars. Tommy went on to study electrical engineering at Oklahoma State University, his education partly funded by his bracket racing winnings. He worked for several major automotive electronics companies before starting his own firm specializing in racing data acquisition systems. He holds 17 patents related to motorsports electronics. He still races occasionally, though he jokes that modern delay boxes make his original creation look like a stone tablet. The impact of the delay box extended far beyond drag racing. The technology found applications in other forms of motorsport where precise timing mattered. Rally racing used similar systems for start timing. Circuit racing adapted the technology for launch control. Even outside motorsports, the principles Tommy developed influenced industrial automation and robotics, where precise timing control was crucial. The delay box controversy also changed how racing organizations approached rulemaking. Instead of reactive bans after technology appeared, sanctioning bodies began trying to anticipate innovations. Rules became more comprehensive but also more complex. The simple rulebooks of the early 1980s gave way to hundreds of pages of technical regulations trying to define exactly what was and wasn't allowed. But here's the beautiful irony. Even with delay boxes eliminating reaction time advantages, bracket racing didn't become boring or predictable. It simply shifted the competition to other areas. Finish line driving became more critical. Car preparation and consistency mattered more than ever. Weather reading and dial-in strategy became high art. The human element never disappeared. It just evolved. Modern bracket racing is unrecognizable from the sport Tommy revolutionized in 1984. Today's delay boxes are digital marvels with touchscreen interfaces, GPS integration, and wireless connectivity. They can download track timing data, analyze previous runs, and suggest optimal settings. Some units use artificial intelligence to predict perfect reaction times based on thousands of variables. The technology has advanced so far that Tommy's original 555 timer box seems quaint by comparison. Yet the fundamental principle remains unchanged. Remove human variance from the equation. Create perfect consistency through electronic precision. Let technology handle what technology does best, freeing humans to focus on strategy and driving skill. It's a philosophy that extends far beyond drag racing into how we interact with all forms of technology. The story of Tommy Peterson and his $35 delay box is ultimately about disruption. One smart kid with a soldering iron changed an entire sport forever. He didn't ask permission. He didn't wait for approval. He saw a problem, engineered a solution, and implemented it. The racing establishment had to adapt to his innovation, not the other way around. Today, every serious bracket racer uses a delay box. They're as essential as helmets or seatbelts. The devices that once caused furious controversy are now mundane equipment. New racers don't even understand what the sport was like before delay boxes. The idea of trying to hit perfect reaction times through pure human reflexes seems as outdated as hand cranking a Model T. Tommy's legacy isn't just the delay box itself, It's the principle that innovation can come from anywhere. A teenager with basic electronics knowledge revolutionized a sport that had existed for decades. He proved that you didn't need massive funding or institutional support to change the world. You just needed a good idea and the courage to pursue it. The Oklahoma bracket racing scene that spawned the delay box remains vibrant today. Thunder Valley Raceway still hosts weekly bracket races, though the track has been modernized several times. In the staging lanes, you'll see racers making the same preparations Tommy did 40 years ago. Flip the switches, arm the delay box, trust the electronics, focus on the finish line. But technology never stops evolving. Modern racers are experimenting with predictive algorithms that can anticipate track conditions before they happen. Some are using machine learning to optimize reaction times beyond what simple delay boxes can achieve. Others are developing systems that can adjust delays in real time based on how the car launches. The innovation that Tommy started continues with each new generation. The philosophical question Tommy's invention raised still resonates. When does technology stop enhancing human performance and start replacing it? In bracket racing, that line was crossed in 1984 with a $35 box of Radio Shack parts. The sport adapted, evolved, and ultimately thrived. But the question remains relevant as technology continues advancing into every aspect of competition and life. The most remarkable aspect of this story isn't the technology itself, it's that a 16-year-old kid saw what everyone else missed. While veteran racers were practicing their reaction times for hours, trying to shave off milliseconds through repetition, Tommy recognized the futility of fighting human limitations. Instead of training harder, he thought smarter. Instead of accepting the status quo, he engineered a solution. That gray project box with 2 toggle switches changed drag racing forever. It democratized reaction times, making perfect launches accessible to anyone willing to learn the technology. It forced the sport to confront fundamental questions about the role of electronics in competition. It spawned an entire industry of delay box manufacturers and tuners. Most importantly, it proved that innovation doesn't require permission. Tommy Peterson, whose real name remains a closely guarded secret among those who knew him, embodied the spirit of American hot rodding. See a problem, build a solution, test it at the track, share it with others. Don't wait for someone else to do it. Don't assume the current way is the only way. Question everything, measure everything, and improve everything. Modern bracket racers owe their sport to that Oklahoma teenager with a soldering iron and an idea. Every perfect reaction time, every close finish decided by thousandths of a second, every consistent run down the track, it all traces back to that $35 delay box built on a workbench in a suburban garage. The technology has evolved beyond Tommy's wildest dreams, but the core concept remains unchanged. Eliminate human variance through electronic precision. The delay box revolution teaches us that disruption often comes from unexpected sources. The racing establishment didn't see Tommy coming. They were focused on horsepower and tire technology and aerodynamics. Nobody was thinking about reaction times as a solvable engineering problem. It took a teenager with fresh eyes and basic electronics knowledge to recognize the opportunity everyone else missed. Today's racers take delay boxes for granted, but they represent something profound about human progress. We identify our limitations, then engineer around them. We use technology to extend our capabilities beyond biological constraints. We democratize performance, making excellence accessible to anyone willing to learn. That's the true legacy of Tommy's $35 invention. What's the most innovative solution you've seen in racing? Have you ever witnessed technology completely change a sport overnight? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories about the innovations that revolutionized motorsports. Until next time, keep questioning the status quo, because the next game-changing innovation might be sitting in your garage right now, waiting to be discovered.